You have a microphone in case people have trouble hearing? I don't know if you want to use.
I don't need a microphone. The last thing I want to mic, but that's, some people need microphone, I don't need a microphone. But thanks.
Yeah.
You do more and more of this. I saw your calendar. That's pretty cool. You do this for other things too, right?
Usually it's a state conference, but it's also for state music stuff, so there's a state
Oh, yeah,
music
yeah,
one on
sure.
Sunday for Easter.
Yeah.
Then there's a Christmas one. Now the state Reliance ones.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Pretty easy.
You say the ones I didn't. State.
By the way, I sure enjoyed your thing you
Oh
did with
my
your son, boy.
gosh. That was.
Who would ever think that
amazing.
we had a guy in our world when we grew up? He was a roofer. But he was quite a player. He played in a lot of jazz
Okay.
stuff in the Bay Area. I mean, top tier guy, but that guy could pull it off too. Not anybody just could pull off a trumpet in the church.
Yeah.
You guys did a beautiful job. That was, the harmonies were great.
A lot of it was written by Laurie Stevens.
Really? Awesome. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Really. How long have you been teaching self-reliance?
One night.
Yeah, but we've been doing it.
Yeah, I years ago in the war, you weren't here. I gave a fifth Sunday, this is 23 years ago. And it was awesome, dude. We almost had fist fights in the room. I was asked to talk on the parable of the, right? And the point of that is, it's to dispel this idea that the church can take care of everybody, but that's too hot.
I know, I took it down. I just,
That's
it
that's
got
crazy.
really hot.
But, yeah, it was the, and so
But
I had one of my neighbors get up and say, I'm not worried about it, the church take care of me, just flat out. I'm not gonna do that, the church take care of me. And then I had another kid say, so you tell me, Brother McCoy, if it really gets bad here, and I come to your house knocking, are you not gonna give me your food? I said, you know, I'm not. Actually, that's the point of this whole lesson. And this was a guy who was a little off. Where are you from?
California.
Career
So?
seminary teacher, do you guys say more?
Okay, early morning.
Yep.
The only.
No, this guy was from here, he was a professional seminary teacher. And, you know, career, he was, at the time, probably, was Brother Johnson, he was gray haired. But, it got real weird, dude. And, I was like, well, this is interesting. I didn't even, to me, coming from California, I didn't even know that kind of thing existed here.
Mhm.
And so that was weird. That was the last time, and I would have done it. I didn't care. I don't care about that kind of stuff. We're all just thing together.
Mhm.
So, but I mean, that was the last, this Sunday we had in this ward since then. Preparedness.
Where are you from, California? Where are you from?
Ventura area?
Oh,
yeah.
South.
We grew up in, both of us grew up in Fremont, California, up by San Jose.
Yep.
Almost 30 years
What?
that we moved here.
In October. we-
April. Wait, let's see.
No, October.
I mean, I was here in April, so like 96, April. So we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We got one more year to go, 29. 29. I came here before she did.
Yeah. I had all
My
the
kids. I came here in April. And once I here a while, so I was hustling some work here, and then I brought my two oldest
Later,
Yeah.
not the same time.
June 1st, when they graduated, when school got out, because they had, the one was a football player, so he came out here as a freshman. So he did, summer practices and all that stuff. Then we closed on our house here in October. Because we had somebody from here wanting our house,
Weird.
and they can never sell theirs here.
Hmm.
Right? They wanted us to buy it, is what was anything that we wanted, so. They were so nice, they were such good people, and we felt so bad that it didn't work out for them, but we just really wanted it to, for them. They were the neatest family, young family.
And we were gonna take his crappy house.
No, well, he wanted, but it, no, it didn't work, it was,
No, it didn't.
it was over by the Provo, drive-in. It's back, yeah, yeah, it's gone now. But not the
What
best,
side of the freeway?
west,
West,
I mean,
No,
east, I'm sorry,
east.
east,
east,
by the mountain,
Oh,
you know, but.
Yeah.
But the,
it's by the cemetery.
how about the cemetery,
yeah.
Kinda.
some of the last flat ground,
Yeah.
and this house backed right up to it, and I didn't want. I know my kids, they were, like I said, one was 14 and 12 and a half, almost 13. And then,
14.
I knew what that theater being there meant. They would have been there doing shenanigans.
They were
you know.
doing shenanigans, so you can't.
I mean, it just didn't seem right.
They didn't.
This house needed a lot of work anyway, their house, I could have done it, but it had that old, all that brown paneling in it, you see it? That old brown paneling.
My grandma-in-law just sold her Provo house last year, I think, and it was nothing but brown paneling in every room.
Every room.
Yeah.
You know, and so it would have taken a lot of work, it wasn't a bad property, it was an acre, actually. It was in a cul-de-sac. But the house was old.
Mhm.
That house was 1950s house. And so it needed a lot. But I had just gotten done fixing it, a house like that. So. That.
Another house was built in 1950. 1950.
Oh, I have everything here.
1950.
50, our other house was 50 as well. Yeah, but I, that house, he walked right out of it. Turned around and walked right out of it, and I said, oh,
It was a
it was
It was
awesome.
two-bedroom.
Probably the best built house I've seen in my career.
Five kids.
Oh,
Yes.
But we made, it ended up being awesome, because I found a set of plans in the house, in the furnace room. It was an old blueprint. Not white paper, the blue paper with the white, or the white ammonia. And,
It's not from us.
it,
Hey, Chris.
ended up being, an awesome house. But I did everything from the ground up, all new pipes, all new electrical, right? And I got a bunch of money off the house for some things that I fixed for next to nothing. So it was a great thing that I didn't want to do again. So I'm about to do it again.
No, and I wasn't either. I did dishes in my, bathtub for 9 months.
You renovating your house right now?
Huh?
You're renovating?
No, this was an old house.
In California.
Oh, okay.
But there was no water pressure at all. So nobody wanted to buy this house for the property. And an extremely well built house. As I got into it, I had never to this day have seen a house built that well. The craftsmanship was off the charts. And so and then when I found the plans, I saw that they had planned for, an addition. They had the framing in the walls. Right, and they had the footings already poured. And so it was an easy renovation.
I hated it. I was pregnant with my sixth.
Oh, how's it going? Hey, how are you?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Carl
Dennis McCoy.
You cram all 5 kids in that one bedroom?
Yes.
We had a bunk bed and we had the
Hey,
that
President.
was out, the day bed
Good, how are you?
kind of thing.
Good.
And then we had one in a crib that was like.
That was good.
That wasn't long though. I had that house remodeled in that part of it. 6 months.
It's Isaac up
And then I had the kitchen done in about 2 years.
Second
But
semester of BYU.
the other parts of this,
This is like his generals and stuff.
the footings were out,
He's starting to
went
get into his major.
out as well. They had these big porches in.
Something to do with genetics.
Right, so I didn't change the roof.
That people can understand, but.
right?
What he's doing.
And so I just filled those areas. I saved them all.
Yeah.
All your kids are smart though.
Oh, yeah.
So when I saw those prints in there,
They don't get it from me.
I was
Let's
like,
get it
"They're
from
awesome."
mom.
Yeah.
That's how
Nobody
many
wants his house.
The smarts from.
Okay. Awesome. So,
There.
but I wasn't gonna do it again, man.
Two twins.
Where did-
90 to 90.
Taylor's in Bolivia. November.
That's the other.
November, he's gonna be out of the country.
Well, that one and this one.
No.
He lived in the house for 30 years.
Got it. So he's over there, we'll be home.
It's a change.
I'm not sure. 30 years, I've been rest that long. I'm with her here and here, he came in, first Bravo House, other first came in the middle, maybe 10 of the transfer.
Got it.
And so that he can come from August or September, and he's not sure what he wants to do.
So he may be a couple months for his brother.
Yeah, and they
You
left,
said
they
November
left
free.
about 3 months difference.
Oh, got it, got it, got it.
Taylor wanted.
Maybe that's what she did, is put
This
this all
all
together.
together, semester of college, just to make it. Because school got out and their birthdays weren't.
See what happens?
You can tell. Hey, you guys, you want to come pick up those handouts?
Sure.
So he doesn't put them together.
They said, I
Do you
don't
think
Don't mess it up.
I don't want to go to the semester of college, I was going to go on the.
Yeah.
And Taylor wanted to go on.
Everyone's got a different approach.
But then they were both able to
They did?
do their own preparing for the going to buy the stuff, their own farewell, their own. So it was good.
It's one each, Rick?
Yeah, it's funny.
Thank you.
I'll tell people that they come in, you know.
That's exciting, that they're both about to come back in
Yeah,
near future.
yeah, so it's good. So
Awesome.
Riley's not sure when he's after agents out there and it's when they're tired and I said, with your sign language, and that can,
Yeah.
you can do a lot with
Be a
that.
skill.
Yeah. So don't give up. I said, go be a fireman, you gotta do something. They work 2 days. They're gone for 2 days, but then they got 4 days off, and then go back again. I said, so because there's a lot of firemen that go over to do that. That's their full-time job, and then they can do another.
Another side.
Yeah. And so Lori, she sells houses, so. Private, maybe I can sell houses. And can I do both? Yeah. And she would go with the team and. Who knows, yeah.
So she might follow in mom's.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you purposely said don't follow that.
No, times have changed, it's.
Hard, it's always been required law, right?
Yeah, so but I said, you know, I support you wherever you want to go.
That is
You do what you want to do.
Leslie.
True. It's funny, but I'm the doctor, I would like this, I'm like, don't do what I did.
She's like, my.
Unless they really want to do it. They're not having encouragement.
Just want to be.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I'm a CPA.
These are actually
and
different.
auditor, so I work with companies, in a lot of companies.
That's you are not.
Yeah, not a tax guy, that's what most people think, and they, oh, it's legal and that's not.
Hello.
Nice to Oh,
Just long.
I'm tired today.
There it is.
It's been on your phone 2 days.
Here, take some, some of these.
You know what?
Funeral that started what, Saturday?
Yes, it's just been crazy. It's like. How's the move go? I didn't get home last night till like 8:30.
It's not very well. I'm sure it's for.
Yeah, it's really.
I
still don't have.
Oh.
So the whole place was
Yeah.
abandoned, and it was just, it was just a running around.
Place of 1911.
So much fun.
So the other,
Yes, it's that bad.
How are you?
Yeah, 20 minutes. I was like, did you? I think. I didn't get off the couch and she went to Walmart, came back and I got out and she got there. She had done for us, or whatever it was.
And the weather, it's been so better.
Yes.
her, how's basically still back and forth, her Reliance and Clark.
Yeah, he still wants to.
The one that was saying.
That's what he wants to do. You know,
I think an old house like that.
Yeah.
Go oversee that. What happens about when? That's right.
Like, we really love the structure, and it's exactly what you hear.
So let's get started. I'm sure some people will come straggling, but that's okay. It's pretty informal. Brother McCoy, my wife, Tricia and I called to serve as the stake emergency preparedness specialist. I'm not new to this, but let's start with a prayer. Chris, can you give us a prayer?
Father in heaven, thank you for this opportunity we have to get together to have a conversation about an important topic, and thank you for the preparation that both of us put into this topic. Thank you, Father, for blessings which we have today, gospel, and the opportunity we had to hear from thy servants, our leaders, this past weekend. We ask, Father, for thy spirit to be present, that we may be uplifted, and that we may be able to take away some to-dos, and to be able to implement in our lives through this meeting. Thank you for all those given us in Jesus' name, Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Come on in, guys. Take some the handouts. My wife's got to actually head out to her granddaughter's very last dance competition on earth. So you're good. I got this. Brothers and sisters, I have been involved in emergency preparedness since I moved to Utah, and I don't know why. The only thing that separated me from anybody else was when I bought our house from a LES family. It had a really cool food storage room in it. Like a really neat rack for the cans and all the other stuff. And we brought quite a bit of food storage with us. We did it before. We're like all of you. We didn't have two nickels to rub together. Because we were asked to do food storage, we did it. We moved that stuff around as students, and you know, the many different houses and stuff we lived in. Brother, grab that, some of those flyers there. And you know, we did the same. We had this thing, follow the cycle that most of us have. Threw a lot of it away when it fired and went bad, or the mice got to it. But what was neat about getting here is like the light went on. And I thought maybe we can do something with this really cool room people built. We'll do something different. We'll start storing what we use. We had 6 kids and we went through the stuff really nicely, right? But now my wife and I are at that chapter where the kids are all gone and we're back to throwing stuff away. But anyway, I wanna actually kind of shift our focus in this stake, because I have been involved not only at the ward level, but at the stake level. When I was on the high council, they called me to be in a committee. And we were tasked by President Wilkes to consolidate the 27-page stake emergency plan and come up with an example of a ward emergency plan to distribute to the wards. Hi. Go ahead and grab some flyers there. Again, I'm Dennis McCoy. I'm from the 12th Ward. But one of the things lately that's happened, and I've been involved with the 9/11 emergency drill since it started. There's block captain, there's the ward specialists, and we've had several different titles. And then when I was released from my calling in 2019 from the stake, I was called to be the Provident Living specialist. So I have been connected to this, and for some time now, I have been trying to understand what it is that's kind of fallen apart a little bit. And I think the number one thing that's happened that I've seen is with the 9/11 drill coming along, in our ward anyway, it's become our emergency preparedness in its entirety. That's it. If we can pull that off, we feel like mission accomplished. And that's actually gotten to the point where there's some things about that have bothered me. And I think, and I've been to the city meetings and different things, and Sister Johnson is my neighbor. You know, I love her. She's awesome. And so it's taken a while for me to kind of figure what's happening here. Why are we where we're at? Because when I first moved in here, there was quite a bit of emphasis on preparedness. We used to have 72-hour buckets that would exchange every priesthood week. Somebody would be challenged to bring theirs, and we had the colored cards and other things going on. I've seen that slowly be displaced by the 9/11 drill. And I've got something here on this. This is the agenda, the rethinking emergency preparedness of kind of what we're going to talk about today. And one of my favorite scriptures in Revelations is the one that says, "Because you were neither cold nor hot, but were lukewarm, I spew thee from my mouth." I love that scripture. And it gives us kind of an insight into our Father in heaven, right? If we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's not kind of do it. Let's not halfway do it. And one of the fundamental problems with the 9/11 drill is it was pitched as a volunteer community civic plan. Yet the reason it works so much better here than the other two cities that it's tried in, that it's the program, it's done in Chicago and in the city and in the parishes in Georgia by FEMA, and we always trounce them in our statistics. We crush them. But why? The natural thing that happens is they've gotten to the structure of the church, right? And because of the structure of the church, it works really well compared to anywhere else. We would never have a chance to work like it works here. And especially in a place in the church where there's so many LDS people in this tiny little space, right? But there's a problem with that because it's intended to be a civic volunteer program. Yet when you ask somebody to be a block captain, you ask them saying, "What if you really want to volunteer to be this block captain?" And the good people in Linden, most of them say, "Okay." Right? Now we do have some that get the preparedness thing and they're more involved in preparedness and they're more enthusiastic about it. But I think because it's not a calling all the time, I don't think we're being honest about the whole thing. And I went to a meeting, it was about 3 months ago, where people doing what I'm trying to do here, that I've been called to do here, were there at the meeting with the city. And every single one expressed the same frustrations. But we had one stake that's gone beyond that, and they've done a couple of things that I want to talk about tonight that I think we probably want to think about doing in this state. Like I say here, I think I think for first of all, I think every ward needs a ward preparation specialist, ward emergency preparedness specialist. And look on LDS tools, you'll see every title under the sun that falls under. Whether it's Provident Living or ward emergency specialist or block captain specialist, block captain leader. We have all these things, right? So I think we need to make that consistent, and I think it needs to be callings. I think that the process needs to happen through church callings. And I don't really care what the title is, but there needs to be somebody in each ward that is that specialist. Now, another thing I think that's let me back up a little bit and tell you what happened with all of these efforts that were put together to do what we're trying to do now in 2019. When we were calling the committee, the stake presidency saw a need to do they saw the same things I'm talking about, and the need to have by ward a specialist. And the discussion of whether or not block captains would be callings was discussed. But the reason nothing was finalized is, if you guys will look real quick to, there's a handout here. One says, Linden 12th Ward Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan. And one is and I don't have it here, I gotta go get it. One is the state plan. You see those? It's got yellow on it, the stake one. These are the 3 pages consolidated that we as a committee took the 27-page state emergency plan, which was full of everything under the sun for handouts and suggestions for water storage and food storage and all these things. And we consolidated it to 3 pages. But if you look at the date, it's interesting to look at the date here. 3 things happened right as this thing got presented to the stake. We had the pandemic come along. We had a change in stake presidency. And the welfare committees ended. The stake welfare committee and ward welfare committees ended. That all happened together right at the same time. So what that was like 3 nails in the coffin of this thing going anywhere. So it didn't get reviewed. And so when I got called to this calling, because here's the other thing that happens in the church, right? It's like in scouts or anything. We get a guy that really gets the scouts down. He's got them running like a top when we used to have it. And then he gets released, right? Well, we all got released. And so we just thought, okay, this will just continue on. Well, as far as I can tell, from that time, nothing has changed. This didn't get fully reviewed. It didn't go to the state council because it was supposed to go to if you look on it here, it's supposed to be reviewed by the state welfare committee. Oops. No more. So I think we're back to where we were. And it's interesting that I got this calling because I was actually involved in this. This comes from my computer. Here's what's really neat. Very few times in life do I actually go back that many years and find something actually in a file and organized. But there it was. I'm like, oh yeah, I was involved in all this. But we need to get back to where that thing ended and bring it back around and get us back on track. And because there's no stake welfare committee, ward welfare committee, how are we gonna do it now? Well, we've been in quite a few council meetings with Brother Okawa here and Brother Winters, our President Winters. And the consensus is, and again, everything I'm saying tonight here is open to we want feedback, we want your ideas, what's in your heart, what you think. We think this needs to go through the Relief Society and the Elders Court, not the bishoprics. They've got, the whole folks of the church, we want them to be with our youth and focused on that. So any of these efforts, and when we get back to having ward emergency specialists, ward block captains called, ward emergency plans, family emergency plans, and the like, the vehicle for which this is going to transpire is going to be through the Relief Society and the Elders Court. And let me get back on track here with my. Oh, by the way, I didn't even see that right there. That's actually dated to 36 AD lamp from the Holy Land that I bought at a antique shop. Isn't it interesting in a conference how we had so many talks about this? And if you listen to the prophet's message, I love how he words things every time a little more carefully, so it's a little more real, right? A little more urgent. I think there's a need for this, and so it's not just. Go ahead.
directed to release the block captains then? Because we've had block captains all along. And they told us 2 weeks ago that they were all released. They weren't having block captains anymore.
Wow. Look, you're here at the very beginnings of what's going to actually happen. So, one thing you'll notice in here, I think some wards have too many block captains, because if we're going to have callings, it's just too many callings. I know some, and this is open for discussion, because is it better to have 10 to 12 homes or 5? What's more effective, right? We got to remember, we've been through a few emergencies, right? Nothing huge, but when we had the big rains, that little weird rainstorm we had last year, we had some flooding, we had some issues, and so it's funny. And if you'll notice, when we go through this stuff, you'll notice that when we consolidated these things, we didn't do it on our own. We had some directives from the church. And it makes a lot of sense, and we'll go through that. And there's actually reasoning behind the structure that comes down from Salt Lake as opposed to from Linden City, right? Now, we're trying to get congruencies with all of that. And block captains with the state, the city, and the church, that is consistency. There is consistency in that. So we'll talk about that, but let's go through this. One thing at a time here. Again, as far as the title, again, the reason that we got to have at least a ward representative, that's the ward emergency specialist, whether it's, you call them Provident Living Specialists. I don't care what the title is, but we need to know who that person is. And they're actually, part of their calling is obviously going to be overseeing block captains and being in charge of block captains, because what they do, instead of having, because we talked about having block captains and assistant block captains and assistant block captains, because you'll notice that the way the church actually works in that emergency we had, all this kind of goes out the window, and we go back to the church structure. What is that? State presidencies, bishops, right? That's what it's going to do. And why is that a good way? There's a good reason for that. Don't we always usually have one of those people home? When I was put in charge of this, I was traveling all over the place. I was the ward specialist, and I was never here. And so the chances of there being an emergency, me not being here, was pretty good, right? And so when President Wills came to us and said, and if you look at that stake plan, when he came to us, if you look at the highlighted sections here, you'll notice that and it says Leaders Guide for Welfare up at the top and the church welfare resources. That's where this stuff comes from, but it's not even the same now. So I didn't change this on purpose. This is exactly how it existed in 2019. This is what we thought was going to work. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you right now, this is not going to work today for several reasons. And we want to kind of nail it down and kind of figure out what about it has to change. Again, notice this: ward welfare committees and welfare specialists. It's not the way it's going to work. But one thing I want you guys to turn to on, does anybody know what's going on with the Linden Care Center? Is it done?
It's done.
Done, right? They got conflicting things online about like it's going to come back or something, but it's done. So obviously that's got to change. Now go to the key roles and responsibilities. I don't think this actually is going to change, because I think the directives from the church are the same, and I think it makes sense. Again, if you look at this, who's the stake incident commander? These are the titles that the church at that time in 2019 wanted in our plans. It's the stake presidency, right? What are the word? Who's the word? Who are the ward incident command? The ward. What do we got? Ward incident commander. Who's that? I got it highlighted here. bishop or senior member of the ward. Now, as we as a committee poured over this back in 2019, thinking, is there a better way to do it? You know, why are we, you know, what, you know, is there consistencies here? I mean, how do we do this? In a real situation, if there were really a disaster here, and we're gonna see this, there's something else we were asked to do here, and I'm gonna get that in a second, it's these grab and go carts. We are gonna fall back on the path of least resistance. It's just gonna happen, right? First our families, then our immediate neighbors, then the church structure. So it makes a lot of sense for the actual official people involved to be the stake presidency and the bishopric, right? In the event of an emergency. Because the chances are one of them is going to be here. That's the number one reason. If it all comes down to a ward specialist or even block captains, the reason a ward specialist must exist, in my opinion, is because you have a better chance of having somebody here in the event that a block captain or two is not here during an emergency, and they fill that in, right? And one thought was, well, then do you have a ward emergency specialist and a backup ward emergency specialist to fill those in? Because what if the ward emergency specialist is gone, right? You're not going to fill those holes in the block captain situation. What's interesting, if you look at the state website, it's all about block captains from the state. I don't really know how that, where that coordination comes from, whether it's a national, do you?
I don't, but I think that there's a reason for it, and that's to incorporate those who live among us who are not members of the church.
Good call. Because that's one great thing about our block captain system, right? And wouldn't it be ideal if it were civil and we all just volunteered and we had a lot of people, we had that many enthusiastic people? Let me talk on that just for a second. I don't come from here. I moved here, 29 years ago, but I lived elsewhere in several different places. And when you went to a city council meeting, it was a big deal because a lot of the people there, that was their religion. And you'd see the same ones. I was a builder, so I'd have to go for various meetings all the time, right? Go here. We're all too busy. We have religion. We have lives. We have very busy lives. We don't have the civil activity like most places in the world. We don't. And so what's really weird about this whole 9/11 thing, us being picked to be this example, I promise you, it would not work without the church. We'd be the worst of all the cities. If you said, must separate church, no connection, all volunteerism, who wants to do this? This is the community. It wouldn't work. Because we are so busy. We're also involved in, what we do. And so we have to bring this back to, and we should be the best though, right? We should be the most prepared. We should be the most prepared community, but it has, in my opinion, again, this is something for discussion tonight. I think you can't make it happen without the church being the center and using that church structure. And for these things to be calling, particularly if we want to not be lukewarm, if we really want to make this thing work. So let's look real quick at these titles that come down. At the time, they came down from the church's welfare program. And for example, your building here, we already have a structure in the church and the stake. There's a building rep. There's a guy who's, we have agent bishops. We have building specialists. So if somebody needs to check the building, it's easy to put that responsibility on somebody because that's kind of they have the mantle anyway. So there's a couple of these titles that, some of these positions that at the time we didn't have in place. As you can see, if you look at the incident commanders, that you've got the bishops at the time, right? But of course, that's something that's, fluid. We all understand that. But I want you to look this over, take it home with you, digest it, and either tonight or at any time, feel free to, contact my wife or I, and we need to work on this. We need to get this done. This needs to be done. We need to, go ahead.
Make people aware of hole that I feel like I'm in.
Okay,
In regards to this, my name is Ashley Egan. I'm in the Linden Sixth Ward,
okay,
but actually I'm not in the Linden Sixth Ward. I am single. I'm
okay,
a single adult. I live alone over there. And I attend the Alpine Single Adult Mid-Singles Ward, which meets in Alpine,
right,
18 miles away.
right.
And as a singles board, we have nothing in preparation for this. And if we had an incident, I would not expect anything to come out of that ward to look over me in regards to that.
No.
But I don't think I'm actually on the radar of my home ward because my records are not in my home ward.
Can I just show you something? Take this flyer, take this. The ward one, take the Linden, it says Linden Quilt. This is the one, if you notice the date's a little later. When I got called to be Provident Living, I took this plan that was supposed to serve as an example. If you'll notice on the ward plan though, you should be, because if you look at the word plan, it's a little longer, but what it has in it. See this special needs and assignments section that every work plan should have? It should specifically list singles, widows, handicap, mentally challenged, whatever that might be, special needs, right? So that's definitely an issue, right? Particularly when we're trying to mesh the whole 9/11 drill thing with our ward emergency. So again, take this as an example, but what we'd like to see, obviously, in the near future is a finalized state plan, finalized ward plans. And then we can move out into the other areas. Before I go further on what those areas are, I want to talk about something else we were tasked to do, because one of the things I think that was very astute on the part of our previous state presidency is, and we saw it this last time with the flood, in a real emergency, things tend to go out the window if they're not pretty established or simplified. If you have a 27-page emergency plan, you think that's going to be read? It's not. So we were asked to come together with what they called these flyers here. These were actually printed on cardstock. And who remembers the colored cards in the windows? Whose wards had those and who remembers those? Did any of your wards have that? Really? We had it big time in our ward. And we still have them. They have collected dust for 29 years in my closet, my front coat closet. Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but along with this, and every household having this is supposed to be one of these. And this is the stake one for stake leaders. Okay, it's called a grab and go card. We were asked to put together a grab and go card. What is that? It's a one-page simple document that in the event of an emergency, a church leader, ward, emergency specialist, block captain, stake presidency, member of the bishopric, agent bishop, and say, what was it? What was supposed to do? Now, if you look at these, two documents here, on the one page is what to do in the case of an emergency where there is cell phone communication or where there isn't, the basic steps. And on the back is the resources for how to get a hold of the people that you can get a hold of. Okay. And you'll notice the word's different. And you can see both of these are unfinished because they were simply at the point of being reviewed in their initial form. This was the first draft that we never got passed, right? So there's obviously room for a lot of improvement. There's some suggestions that can be made. But if you look at these, let's look at the stake one. The first 3 steps are what? What are you going to do? You're going to make sure your family's okay. That's the first thing you're going to do. We're all going to do that, right? In your case, sister, you have pets? You make sure they're okay. Then you're gonna make sure the people around you are okay. You're gonna go out, you're gonna go outside, you're gonna say, how was my neighbor's house? You know, what's their situation? Are they home? Especially if you have a neighbor that's a special needs neighbor, right? And then you're gonna secure the welfare of those people. That's what you're gonna do first. Oh, wait a second, you're bleeding, but I'll be right back. I gotta go do my other thing in the emergency plan here. You're not gonna do that. And so if you look at the ward version of that, of course, it has another step here. I would think some of these stake leaders are actually going to get to the stake, have the people around the block captains, whatever, take care of their immediate needs. And they're gonna start thinking about what are we gonna do as a stake, because what is the city? What are the city resources, right? That's all in plan, that's in place. And so if you look at the stake version, they start after they've done the first three things, they start going to, you know, these steps if there is electronic communication available. And then they go to the steps below if there isn't. And they're different. They're not the same. You can't expect to get on your phone and do a text thread if there's no cell phone, right? Whether it's, you know, an earthquake or EMP or the grid goes down or whatever. And then obviously, if you look at the resources on how to get a hold of the state people that they're supposed to get a hold of, because there's people that are expecting their calls. They can't do that, right? So we have a state communications director. Well, we need to revisit that, but we have ham radio set up. We have ham radio operators. That plan's already in place, right? And then on the ward level, we have runners. That's what the block captains come in, right? That whole concept of running to these leaders. And so if you notice on this page, there's addresses, not only phone numbers, there's addresses. So we know where those people are that need to be gone to. And if you go back to the ward emergency plan, what our hope was as a stake was to get the wards to get their plans done. And in my opinion, the most important part of that ward plan is the section where it talks about the people within the ward that are resourceful in the event of an emergency. Nurses, doctors, emergency, firemen, these kind of things. And so I don't think we're far off of getting this right back on track. And again, that's part of this. I think we need to realize that the 9/11 drill is but a part of emergency preparedness. It should be a small part of what we're doing, right? And I don't think that's ever going to happen without a ward specialist, each ward having a specialist and having block captains that are called. And get back to let's see, what am I? Okay. Again, let's open something up for discussion here. What do you think about block captains first? The concept of block captain. Essential?
I think it's a good thing.
I'm a block captain. I think that our board, it works well. We have many.
How did it work in the flood? Did it work?
Of course not,
Yeah.
because we're not trained to use that program. It would have been a great training opportunity.
It would have.
To actually use it, and Linden City dropped the ball on that too.
Well, I went to a meeting because of that, and what's interesting to them, what they kind of blamed it, put some of the blame back on us. Because they said, well, you guys all went to the church, back to the church stuff. Bishops but that's not true. We had some wards that actually, their block captains worked pretty well.
We did what you just specified. We checked on ourselves, we went and helped our neighbors. Those were the first things that we.
And that came up too. Because I think that's just natural with this community. We're gonna do that, right? Yeah, it's gotta be easy.
So I think calling a specialist would be useful. if that specialist is tasked with helping families get themselves ready, if it's anything more complicated than that on the neighbors, I think it's going to actually.
And I agree with, if you look at my notes here, let's talk about what you just said about them helping families. I have a friend that I hunt with, and he's a convert to the church. And ever since he was a convert, he's been involved in emergency preparedness, and he moved from Southern California to Boise 2 years ago. And I don't know how they even, like, and now he's the emergency guy there. So he's been through a lot of this, and he sent me I have some great stuff that we're gonna get out to all you guys. But one of the things that that he talked about, that he had in his program, was getting the ward specialists to, through the block captains, have families put together their own family plan. Whether it's fire, how to get out in a fire. And you know, they made it fun, and everybody wanted to come. And they, you know, and in their case, their block captains would have barbecues, and they'd come and they'd spend a little time talking about, here's my family plan. What is your, everybody bring their family plan. That's what they do. And so I think that'd be a fun way to do this.
That's maybe a long. Like we had a windstorm a while back. Your eagle and some and think that we learned about that. Your neighbors, I think that's what's sustained. The flood situation was the same. We had people that were checking on neighbors, and in the cases where ministering brothers and sisters had relationships, they checked in on those people. But that was the network through which the ward leaders got notified.
So they did it through ministry?
Where there were relationships. That's not always the case. Ministry.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you think that if we just didn't do any of this, would it be adequate? I mean, do we need structure? Or do we already have the structure?
That's my theory.
Do you think nobody's gonna get missed?
Well, I think there is a possibility that people get missed.
Well, and I think that one person being missed is enough.
It's a possibility people get missed with the current structure of the old.
Right now, the current structure, heck yeah. But we're trying to create is there a way to create a structure where that doesn't happen?
Not sustained.
Be more. I was gonna say, it could include more people if it was through ministry, but there are some that are members and that are.
That's the thing, because we have enough in our ward. Right now in our ward, I'll say one good thing about our ward, our non-members feel as involved as our members in our current emergency situation. That's one bright spot. So that's why I think the only way to make this work, and you got to remember, we still got to pull off the 9/11 drill until further notice, right? Till FEMA drops the funds. You know, we're looked at. There's somebody in Washington that says, "Man, these guys are incredible. What a community this is." Right? Because as imperfect as the 9/11 drill and how it's kind of morphed into I remember at one time people were riding their bikes or taking the messages to the stake. Now it's the cars all ride it, and it's all done with cell phones. The whole thing's cell phone, text messages and cell phones, which that's not going to happen if there's, you know, certain emergencies. We're not going to have that. So in my opinion, if there were a real big earthquake, that 9/11 drill and what we've learned would go back to, and this was just that little flood thing that kind of showed us a window into what's going to really happen. But I think if we want to make it not be lukewarm about this whole thing, but be hot about it and do our duties as members of the church. And I don't think it's that distant to where we get back to where we can get this stuff and have each family have one of these, so they know what is expected of them, right? Because one thing I do think that's really neat, I didn't know this. When we used to do this, the colors were different. We had an orange, for example, and we had a white. But this is a national program now. This is seen from coast to coast and it's been standardized. So that rescuers, firemen, whoever might come through the neighborhood will actually be looking for this. Right? And so this is something I think if we could get this and one of these, just this and this, into the hand of each member of our stake in their homes. And of course, for specialists in bishoprics and stake presidencies, I think we'd have it. We'd be close. And I'm not sure in the event of a real emergency if they refer to this, but I would hope that they would. Just the grab and go card. And you know, there's a ward one, and then there's one for the stake.
So you're saying the ward one.
And this in each home.
So, I like this. I would like this even better if it was, if it could last 10 years.
Yeah, it needs to be, the one I brought as an example, I couldn't
Because
find it.
all of these numbers and all these names.
Well, that's the problem, that some of those are gonna
How do you
change.
even keep those up to date? You can't. So if there's something, I don't know how we do that, but if it was simple enough that it was like.
Well, we could make them two. We'll make the one, because this would never change, right? In other words, instead of having it be a front and back go card, that's card stock and laminated. Like that's the one that I created. It's laminated and it's on card stock, just like these things are. It would be, we could make two. In other words, the other one slips in. It slips in, so we could even make it goes in the same card, but it's got a sleeve, so it slips in. And so that gets changed. Let's look at this. Everybody take the ward version.
Everybody has a phone with their list of people on it, right? Like, can't it just be?
But I just thought about something. With your comment, take the ward one here. It says Linden 12th Ward. And if you look at the back of it, the people who have resources,
Those probably won't.
those won't change.
Unless they put-
Well, but they're gonna be longer lasting than these callings. Right? So what you could do is have that permanently printed on the back of the card. And then maybe on the back of the card, you have a piece of paper that big where the things that change that comes out. So you can put it back in, slip it back in and that stuff that's fluid and constantly changing.
That could be part of the ward specialist's job.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he keeps it updated and he gets it out to the ward. And they slip it into that part of the card that's,
Every year.
They take it out and throw it away? and it's got a date on it. It's got a revision date, right?
So you're saying that what would change would be the names of who these people are.
Well, some of it, I think this, see, to me, the most important people on this list are the people in the ward that are helpful and that are medical personnel and rescue personnel, that kind of
So
thing.
you make up your own list of what.
So that wouldn't change much, and that would be printed on the back of the card. Each ward would do that. But the stuff that does change, and it's very fluid, like bishoprics and some of these other callings, we could have a thing that just slips into the back of that. And like you say, the word specialists is the one who updates that and keeps that current.
Like, me and Leslie, we know everybody in our ward and we know who has the resource. We know who the doctors are. We could walk to their house, you know, no problem. So is this mainly for people who are not?
Well, let me explain something about preparedness in general, right? Let's back up a step. Let's look at a broader picture then. All of us are here not for us. We're here because, like I say here, back in when it says back to basics down here, you're not going to be effective at reaching out and helping others if you're not prepared yourself. It's the ones that are prepared. It's like the lamp thing,
I
right?
always say you're only as prepared as your neighbor. And So how prepared are we?
Well, what's gonna happen in an emergency, we are gonna have certain individuals that absolutely need help. They're not resourceful, they're not the kind of people that are gonna be calm, right? And let me tell you something, I think I've seen in life. I've seen, I do a lot of hunting and I've seen lions charge people that were supposed to be really, really tough. I've seen elephants come after a guy that was supposed to be a government game scout. He was the first to take off. Right? And I've seen a girl with a camera, the only one stay on a line as it was charging everybody. It was just the way she was made. And we don't know how we're made until there's actually an event like this. And so what are we trying to do here? We're trying to do the best we can so that there's a core of us that aren't freaking out, right? That, it's like some of these things come along, like even the pandemic, it was no big deal for me. I had all that stuff. I'm a nut about, and I'm not no prepper, but I go to Mexico a lot. So I have all the drugs I need, I have all that stuff. I had an ivermectin, I had mefloquine, not hydrochloroquine, but it's the same stuff, right? And I had the mask, I had all that stuff. It's not a big deal. So as everybody's panicking, I'm like, what's all the panic about? So I think that kind of goes with anything. In the flood, we had people that didn't have a shovel. They didn't own a shovel. That's a lot of us. We've come from a different era, right?
From my perspective,
Yeah.
someone who, like, LDS tools in this ward is not something I really have because I'm like, my records are in a different ward. This list with these names and numbers is invaluable to me.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I have no idea who to contact, and yet I live here.
And we'll have addresses on there, not just phone numbers, right? So you can go and say, please help me, right? And so I'm glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here because there's a lot of people in our state that are widows or older or can't get along so well, don't know how to turn their gas off or, don't have a gas indicator like I have. So again, it doesn't just come down to what this all started with me with an Elder's Quorum lesson years ago when I was first married. Again, going to school full time, working as a janitor, and I didn't have two nickels to rub together. And they said the whole concept of the lesson was, "I know not save the Lord commanded me," right? That was it. Why do we want you to do this? Well, I don't know. The prophet said we need to do it. And if you remember back then, there was a lot more conference talks on this than there are anymore. And I do want to mention something. In researching this, it's back in this section, back to basics. When you look at the church website now, it doesn't talk about a year's storage. It talks about short-term storage and long-term storage, and that's defined as what you can pull off, what you could, the best you can do, whether it be 3 months, 2 years, whatever. It's that back to being the best that you can afford and you can swing. And more importantly than being caught up in this idea of a year's storage, it wants us to be prepared for the immediate and prepared for the long term. In other words, this to me gets back to 72-hour kits and water storage. And that's really what the focus is on. If you look at the Word Church website, those are the two things it focuses on. And when's the last time anybody in here, in their wards, ever had a 72-hour kit review? At the ward level. I'm not talking about your family. At the ward level. It was a big deal when I moved here first in my ward. I don't know who did that, and I didn't know. I never seen anything like it, but we had to bring our buckets in and they gave us a challenge. And throughout the year, they mapped it all out and pretty much everybody had their 72-hour, it's done in the entire ward. I don't know who was behind it. I was brand new here.
Dennis, it seems like we have about 10 minutes left. For those of us who really would like to understand the priorities here, help us understand what the priorities are that you need us to work.
What you said, weren't we going to 7:30? I mean, 8:30? No, 8:30. Yeah, but we'll definitely get to that. I've got a whole thing where I want to just consolidate this, but we can answer that question right now. To me, the priorities are this simple. One ward representative for emergency preparedness, whether you call it a Provident Living Specialist or leader of the block captains, block captain leader, I don't care, but we have to have, it's just like in the scripture, we learn about the captains of 100, the captains of 50, and the captains of 10. We have to be able to go down that list and know who that person is. There's no way the city, and that's one of the things they mentioned during this flood thing, there's no way that the city can police the block captains. There's no way they can do that. But they could have a list of ward emergency specialists to call on. And again, there's a little bit of inconsistency in that because if you look at the way the church wants it structured, and I believe this is the smartest thing to do, your incident commanders at the stake and ward level are your stake presidencies and bishoprics. And the reason is because I think it's going to happen anyway that way, just like it did with the flood thing. And one of them is there's a much bigger chance that one of them is going to be here. Because most of the time when I have seen 3 members of bishopric leave with special permission on a youth thing before an award, and they have the elders quorum conducting that, but that's so rare. That doesn't happen much, right? Normally, a member of the bishopric's here and a member of the stake presidency is always here. So that's why that works. What do you guys think about that?
I think you cross-trained the ward council so that any one of them could be available to do that.
That's a great idea. Then I'm going to talk about that too. I don't think any of this works without, because we don't have a welfare committee anymore, it's my opinion, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this, that the ward specialist needs to attend the ward council once a quarter.
What are the roles? What is the ward emergency prep specialist supposed to do?
He's in charge of the ward emergency plan, making sure there is one,
Okay.
grab and go cards, oversees the block captains for the 9/11 drill.
What does that mean though? That's just make sure they're assigned and check in with them, right?
Yeah, and do the duties of the like I was that for years before when I was in the high council too, I was still the ward emergency specialist. And so when there was 9/11 drill, I had to make sure I had block captains. And it was always frustrating because, I felt a little weird because somebody said, I'm not going to be here. And so I'd have to call somebody else up. Hey, you want to be the block captain? You want to volunteer as a block captain? And I think it's a lot easier when there's a calling, because what happens with a calling is that block captain now, they get their block captain when they're gone. Right? It's the way the church works.
Kind of confused, because earlier you said that the Relief Society and the Elders Club should be over the block captain.
Well, I think the Elders Quorum and the Relief Society, if you're looking here, and this is again a topic for discussion, I think the Elders Quorum and the Relief Society ought to be the facilitators in finding block captains and getting them called.
I agree that's not something that.
Yeah. And I don't see anything wrong with the way the structure of the church is for that to take place through and let me tell you something about Relief Societies. They always do it better than we do. They just do. And so they could have ideas, suggestions. And I think that this is why I think the ward emergency specialist, whatever you call that person, if they're going to the ward councils on a somewhat regular basis, whether it's once every 4 months or once every 3 months, it keeps the idea of preparedness alive. That's what it does. It keeps us on our minds.
That's a really dumb question. So if we are calling a ward specialist and block captains, how do they get trained? Because it's really frustrating to be called to something and not know what you're doing.
Your ward emergency specialist. Now, I'm gonna ask, how do they get trained, right?
Yeah,
That's what my wife and I do. That's our calling.
so are you gonna have like quarterly?
We are gonna meet with them on an individual basis.
Okay, that's right. So if we, you know, turn in names, it should be done by calling, like you said.
Yes,
If we turn in names for a block captain, we can say, oh, the McCoys will get in touch with you, or the.
no, we don't, that's the thing. I don't wanna deal with 70 block
Right.
captains. I don't have that time.
So your ward emergency specialist, but you
The-
will train them as to what a block captain should do.
Yes, and therein lies the urgency on our part to fill our callings and do what we've been asked to do. That the real start is somebody from each ward. Right now, we don't have that. You'd be surprised how many wards have nothing.
I know
Or they're called by different names, or they don't know what they're.
Oh, I don't know, yeah.
we have one, but I think that they think it's like you said, it's just the 9/11 drill.
There you go.
And they do that. They're very, I mean, our word's pretty consistent with that,
What's consistent?
with that 9/11 drill, but I don't
Yeah.
think he knows that he's supposed to do.
He doesn't, no, he's not even supposed to do any of that. We're setting that up right now.
Okay,
Yeah, this is what we're here for. We're trying to start, to me, that's the starting point, really.
Mhm.
Because from that point, if we have that person in each ward, we can come to them on an individual
Or you
basis.
call a couple
And we
in
can
there.
give them, I've given you all this stuff, but this is all gonna be worked on and finalized. And we'd love any comments. At least we have something to go on. How about if I would have come here with a 27-page stake plan? And the myriad of different ward plans we had, which were all 12, 13, 17 pages long. I mean, at least we're somewhere, right? And I actually think that the idea of this being in your coat closet by the front door and having the cards. And then this with it. I think if every member of our state had that, including the non-members. It would be a good thing.
I think, lost my train of thought. I think every ward is different, because we've got, in the first ward, we've got a lot of older people in the condos. And so it's a different character there.
And we have to have flexibility for that, right?
Yes, and so, some of them, there's only one person in the house, so those color cards now they'll never get put out because they may have a problem health-wise.
Well,
And so then it changes.
well, look, let's say we get really good at this. And we have an emergency when there's color cards in the houses.
It's better.
The cards that don't have colors in them, those are going to be visited. They're probably the first ones visited, right? And so the idea is that if we had, let's say, 70% compliance in this, you know how much easier this would be for everybody to have 70% compliance? Because I'm gonna say, if they don't have anything, that's probably the first house you're knocking on. So to answer your question, what's the priorities here? Ward emergency specialists? Figure out who that person is, and I think the elders quorums of these sides get together, they know the people the best. And they put their heads together and they say, I think this person would be really good at this, right? And of course, like any other calling, you put some names together, you pray about it. I don't know exactly how that would work with from there, what do they do? Do they go to the bishopric or with these names? Probably, right? Probably meet in a ward council. And they talk in the ward council about those names. And then they push forward. But I think that as far as priority, that's the first thing. And once we have that, we can start working with these ward specialists to get all of this stuff updated and finalized. And our plan is to have an exemplary ward plan that we give to these ward specialists as an example. By the way, I have got a gal that was that presented the last time at our adult education on the weekend. What was that, 3 months ago? March 1st. She's excellent. And she's way ahead of us in the game, and she's sent me her new stake plan. Pretty cool. A lot of stuff thought through. So we've got some good resources and some materials to share with all your wards. And we hope to do it through a ward specialist. So I don't know if we could put a timeline on that, but you can take this back to your ward councils. Take some of this literature, kind of show them what it is that we're after. As far as what we eventually would like to see what that ward specialist is, grab and go cards or emergency plans. And we'd like to have this in place. I know what my goal is. We definitely don't want the 9/11 drill to come around and still be where we're at. I'm leaving. I'm going to Mexico. I'm out of here. So that's what would be my goal. We can get this stuff in place by the 9/11 drill and have a ward specialist that's already working on that, and they see that as just a part of what they're doing, not this whole sum of what they're doing. I think we'll get where we need to be. So I want to open this up to anything else you guys want to talk about, any other discussion. What do you think about these matters? Go ahead.
I just had one thought when I was thinking about coming to this meeting. I just looked up emergency preparedness, is there some kind of guidance? There is. The interesting thing about the guidance that it has in your church tools is that it also emphasizes financial preparedness. And I don't know where that gets covered if it doesn't come here.
No, it doesn't come here. That comes through your self-reliance. That's the miners. They're called as we were called, the miners, brother, sister miner, and they're over self-reliance. So that falls under them. The one thing I do want to talk about today before I end here is there's the preparedness that it's not just temporal preparedness that we're charged with. It's spiritual preparedness as well. And one of the things that I found is that temporal preparedness buoys up spiritual preparedness. In other words, I think it has to do with fear, right? If we got our lives in order, we're not going to be distracted as much, and we can focus on the spiritual. And so I think there's harmony in the two. And I think what it does is it also buoys our hope, right? If we're so consumed, I remember when Y2K, remember that? Everything was going to fall apart. What a deal that was. And I saw some panic even, amongst, some people I know and stuff. And even during the pandemic, what I didn't understand most about the pandemic above all was the fear, right? I was in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I saw these people riding around their bikes with their masks and stuff. And I thought, what's happening here? Got it. It's that black hole of nothingness they're worried about, right? That's why they're so upset and so afraid. We don't need to be afraid, man. We know what's going to happen. We know what's going on. We should be the least afraid people on earth. So I think if we do what we've been asked to do, and if anybody thinks that there's not even a sense of need now, their eyes and ears haven't been open. There's more nutso that's been happening in this world that ever happened in my lifetime before. So it's coming. And if we can be prepared, I think it's at least let's do what we can. Let's give it an effort, an honest effort, not a lukewarm effort. Let's not be wishy-washy about this. Let's go for it, man. Let's be the best prepared state there is. There's no reason why we shouldn't be. Not here. We got the best people and the best stake in the church, so first class folk. Anyway, any other things you want to bring up? How long do you think it'll take to get some of this stuff going?
It'll take a month.
Thanks, wouldn't it? we're ready. We're ready and willing, and I think if you guys know, do you know how to get a hold of me? Now? We're ready. We're ready to come assist you and help your wards and jump in with both feet with you.
Do you have your name somewhere? Do you remember?
Yeah, it's not on here anywhere, is it?
It is because you are a block captain or coordinator. Or emergency.
Oh, yeah, it's in there, but it's on there, yeah, that my old ward list. But I'm in the LDS tools under that's emergency preparedness. You just look up preparedness and we come up. So yeah, I think we can get to having war specialists, block captains sorted out. Oh, what do you guys feel about the size of block captain? There's one ward that has 19.
Maybe just leave it up to the point.
Yeah.
I think every word's different.
As long as there are block.
You know, you're right, because what do I care if I have a ward emergency specialist,
Yeah,
That's your touch point.
that's it. Doesn't matter.
right?
Just let the word.
And if wards can pull off 19 block captains,
Go for it.
then good,
There's more
Bless them.
redundancy.
right?
Do something big and serious. You aren't gonna be able to cover that much ground.
Yeah,
You're gonna
you
need
might be
like-
stopped up. So what if we did this? What if you had 20 and 10 were looked as alternates? Almost, but the 9/11 drill, they can split the duties, right? But because not everybody's gonna be there. That's how much burden is it going to be for the ward specialist in the event of a real emergency to take the freight of the block captains that aren't there?
It's gonna be chaos no matter what.
But it's interesting to me how consistent the state is too with it. They get on the website, you'll see. They manage the stuff through block captain. I don't know where that really comes from.
I think that's the simplest way. I can't even think about another simple way to organize a reporting structure that would be
Yeah.
useful at that level when we have no communication.
Yeah.
There's just no other.
Well, even with communication, it's nice to have your text threads a lot smaller, right?
That seems traditional to be something that brother involved in, I don't.
Right.
Well, it's interesting. That's not the case in all wards. Right? They list the block captains. Some are women. And and in some wards, it's just couples, it's all couples. I don't think that's necessary either. Doesn't have to be couples.
We're gonna call that.
Actually be a great block captain. That's something to think about. Right? If you have somebody who's always gone. Is that the best block captain?
I think the important thing is that you have a group of people on your block and everybody knows who they are. You know, we kind of are gonna look out for each other.
I think you're
I
right.
think that's more important than maybe having
Titles.
a second or a third or a title. It's just, we are our group and we need to look after.
And another thing, don't you think in the end, one of the most important things we could accomplish is family emergency plans,
Absolutely.
right?
Only thing I say out to that is that, yes, it's true that we're all gonna look out for each other, especially locally within our neighborhood. But the good thing about the block captains is the reporting structure.
Yeah.
When we're just looking out for our neighbors and we're not thinking about who's in charge of reporting on the welfare of that unit, then no one above can find out.
You've touched on something really important. When I started getting involved in this and examining it, it surprised me how much the church actually wants to report. They want to know how their members are. That reporting you're talking
That's
about?
built into a lot of our aspects, right? Your church
Yeah.
report.
So that's part of this. They want, that's why there's actually, what's weird about the 9/11 drill, there's consistencies within that. And that's a FEMA program, right? That are very harmonious with the church. So we ought to be pretty good at it, right? And part of it is, it's the reporting aspect. Because the way that works, the area representative in the event of a wide emergency actually will be reaching out to stake presidencies for a report and expecting one. And it's not just, I think everybody's okay. So that's very, very, very good to bring that up. Part of this, big part of this.
So what's the next step? You're gonna wait till you get a response from all of the boards.
Yeah.
And then you're actually going to outline exactly what.
We're gonna meet with the ward specialist, whoever that is. You might have them right now. You might have a Provident Living specialist, whoever that person is. Because I don't even know now. For example, we have one ward that has a preparedness specialist and a Provident Living specialist. That's kind of over them. I don't know. I don't know who to go to. I don't know who that person is. And the LDS tools don't help me at all. Right? There's a different title in every ward.
So we shouldn't move on and the Way Society and Elders Quorum get together and start doing.
So what you do is get together and maybe go to the ward council with some names for the word emergency preparedness specialist.
That's what you want us to do.
Yes. And then from there, we'll meet with them and we'll disseminate this stuff. And, train them on block captains, board emergency plans, board grab and go cards, we want to get this system going too, the card system.
I'll be mining. I'll commit to you to have a specialist and connect with them. Probably be able to do that within a month or so. But
That'd be one.
with the ones that aren't here, I want to just connect with those elders and priests.
Yeah. How many wards are here?
Linden 19th ward is accounted for
20th,
6.
version. Well,
6th word.
So we're not only the 7th?
4th.
So, yeah, you're 4th. So nobody from the 7th, that's it. Okay.
But the other thing I think we could do is, now, these two brothers and sisters heard this and they'll take that, but
Mhm.
also we will to the stake, make sure that the bishops, hear the same message, right? So,
Okay.
so there's that understanding on both
Right.
sides.
Right.
So we'll make sure we do that.
That'd be wonderful. Because if we can get that ball rolling, the rest I think is gonna fall in line. So thank you. I want to leave you with my testimony that I don't know really how I got so involved in this stuff. I'm really not a prepper. I don't have a zombie turret, a 50 cal mounted on the top of my roof. But since I got married, I have simply obeyed that counsel. I'm horrible at journals and other things. I'm not good at it all. But I can say that I've at least tried with this. Hasn't always been that successful. We now currently have an inventory of cans that would, fill a pickup truck of expired cans. All the kids gone now. We can't go through it. But and my wife and I are literally trying to figure out what we're gonna do about that. And every time the people come around to collect cans, we get a bunch and we're like, oh, they won't take this. Right?
Depends on how far it's fired.
Anyway, so I just want to leave you with my testimony that this is actually something we can ask to do, and I think we'll be blessed if we can do it. We live here in a place where we should be on top of this. There's no excuse. So I want to leave you that testimony in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
And if we get somebody to offer a closing prayer, we'll go. There's nothing else. Thank you.
Father, we're grateful. the organization of the church that helps us to prepare and to our neighbors.
Does anybody know who the brother was that left? What ward he was from? I don't either. Okay. Thanks, Brother London, for having, appreciate you. I don't. We will, that's a good point. Because we used to have in my family, we had a real